energy. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here. I am here with Erin. We are going to be talking all about the hustle today, which I am super, super excited about. This is going to be so much fun. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I am the host here at her talk show. And if you are not already subscribed, girl, hit that subscribe button. What are you waiting for? This podcast is guaranteed to have you thinking differently about life and business. Let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
If you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can drop you some love in the comments. Listen, I have had over 600 women grace this stage. We are adding another one to the list today. Erin is a Christian wife, empty nest mom, speaker, author, and business coach for high achieving women of faith. She is the host of award-winning podcast Redefining Hustle, Pursuing Success as a Christian Woman, and author of Pursuing Success God's Way, a practical guide to hustle with heart. Erin loves the beach, tacos, good cheese. Yes, girl. Red wine, singing along to Broadway show tunes, and living in Chesapeake Beach, Maryland. Hello, welcome.
Hi, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, girl. I am so excited too. Thank you so much for joining me so close to the holiday. I so appreciate you coming on, sharing your wisdom, inspiring all the women out there who are business owners.
Yeah. I mean, while my focus is Christian women, like really the message is for all women in business and trying to do that whole, like, is it really balance or is it harmony? And how do we do that?
Yes. Yeah. So how'd you end up as a businesswoman? How'd you end up in this sect?
Yes. So 30 years of corporate executive leadership, sales, project management, etc. Started out in 2010, really trying to plan my corporate exit strategy. And the way that I did that was to step into entrepreneurship with an existing business model in network marketing or multi-level marketing. And I did that. I still have that business. It provides some great residual income. I'm no longer really active in it. But in 2014, like I had checked all the boxes. I had hit 3 of 4 levels, promoted, been on stages, driving the Mercedes, like all the things. And I woke up on an October day and I looked in the mirror and I thought, this is not what I thought success would feel like. Because 2 years prior to that, in the glory of everything that was happening in my entrepreneur life, I was let go from my very lucrative corporate job. And that put us in a tailspin because my business had not yet replaced that income. And I've been a driver's driver achievement chaser my whole life. So recognition was important to me. Accolades, money was very important to me because I grew up with very little. But that day I thought, I have all of that, but I am still so empty and unfulfilled and constantly striving. And so that day I had a conversation with a mentor who I call the Velvet Hammer in my book. And she led me to Jesus. That's, not everybody's story. But for me, I looked down from what I thought was rock bottom and thought, I cannot do this in my own strength anymore because I've done that. And here's where it's brought me. I have all the outward success and all the inward turmoil. And so it was 2014. Over the next 4 years, God did a lot of pruning. And in 2018, he said, now I want you to go share this with my ambitious daughters. And my coaching business was born. A year later, I started my podcast. We're celebrating 5. This is our 5th year, which is crazy. And wrote my book. So yeah, that's how I ended up here. This is not what Erin planned. And trust me, Erin is a planner.
I get that 100%. Before we dive in, you said something that really resonates with me. Money is important to me. I feel like that's not something we hear women say.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not something we hear Christian women say, not because it's not, but because of the shadow that kind
Mm.
of follows that. Where did that kind of come into play in your world, being so bold with a statement like that?
It has taken me many, many years, and praise God for his direction, to understand that it's not money that's the issue. Just like it's not hustle that's the issue. The issue is how we pursue it. The issue is the pedestal that we put it on. Let me be clear. I am not a coach that is, cheering people on and saying, go, let me get you to a 10K month, because maybe that's not really how you define success.
Mm,
But I am a coach that says you can earn money. It is respectable and noble to do so. And God doesn't promise us riches. I'm not a prosperity gospel girl, but he does promise that when we are obedient, we yield fruit. And often in life, we tend to think that that fruit is money. So I have no issue with money. Wasn't always true. I used to feel really hungry, thirsty, unquenched, idolizing money because I didn't have it. It used to define me. The number of commas in my account or in my paycheck used to really define who I was. And I don't have that. That attachment is not there anymore. That for me is, again, through my relationship with the Lord, but coming to a place of understanding that, money is important. It can do really important things, and we need to be good stewards of it. So, yeah.
absolutely. Um, how you define success.
Mm, mm,
That's
yeah.
interesting because, yeah, in the society that we live in, success is often defined as money.
Yeah.
But you're saying, how do you define success?
Right. Right. It's different for everyone, Sabrina, because if we buy into the world's noise of what success is, which, by the way, that measurement of success is always changing. Sometimes it's the dollar, sometimes it's the stages, sometimes it's the following. Certainly in today's world, it's very much about the following. What happens when that measurement changes? What happens when someone moves that target, right? For me, I had a very lucrative corporate job. I made great money, but I was severely unhappy because I had no time to enjoy my family, right? So while success could mean money, it could mean material things. It doesn't have to mean that. Success for someone could mean, how many women have I impacted? You said this earlier. It's here on the screen, right? 600 extraordinary women featured. That is a measure of success, not because of necessarily the number itself, but imagine all of those people have circles and the ripple effect of that. I mean, that could be 60 million women reached because of those 600. We have to be very careful that we're defining success based on our personal values and based on who we were made to be, and not allow the things to define us.
Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm really curious about this hustle thing. And I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I come from a sales background,
Me too.
at door-to-door sales,
Mm,
15 years,
girl.
6 offices, 4 different states, male-dominated, straight commission,
Mm, mm,
very masculine,
mm.
talking about money all the time,
Yeah.
flashing checks, that's normal to me.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
I shift into personal development, and then slowly, people here know my journey. Now I run a community called Her Nation, all female entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And the shift has been very interesting for me on how I hustle
Mhm.
and how females in today's society view hustle.
Mm,
And it is sort of a bad word.
mm.
So, where did this come to be? I'm assuming you had a similar view,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because you're redefining it.
Yeah.
So, tell us about that.
Yeah. I totally am. First of all, I am in awe of those who can do door to door sales, because that is not my jam. But you're only as good as your last number.
Yeah.
You're only as good as your last check. You're only as good as your last goal reached, right? In my past life in sales, it was always that way. It didn't matter that you were 160% to goal for the year, because guess what? They kind of counted against you for the next year, right? Because they were like, oh, well, let's really increase your goal. And I believe that hustle gets a bad rap. The reason is, as I looked around through the 5 years of my podcast, I saw a lot of people talking about hustle and let's not hustle and all the things. I had a cup similar to this one that said, hustle till your haters ask if you're hiring.
Yes. I remember that. I remember.
I felt like, really? Is that? Because see, the hustle wears us out. It drains us. I have a mastermind of Christian CEOs, and every single one of those women yesterday said, I am exhausted. Right? Like, I have success, but I want to do this in a way that's not exhausting. And as I looked around and I saw all of sort of the I believe, definitions of hustle, which I'll come back to in a second, then I also saw this pendulum swing the opposite way to anti-hustle. And I thought, well, I'm an ambitious woman. Like, I am a high achiever. And while I don't allow those achievements to define me anymore, I very much like the hustle. It kind of fuels my adrenaline.
Yeah.
But like, what does that mean? I like to be active. I like to have things happening in my business. I have a very hard time sitting. Like, I've closed my office this afternoon through next week, and I'm like, what am I doing? Right? Because I have a hard time sitting still. But if you look up the word hustle in the dictionary, there are multiple different definitions that point to this negative connotation that we have about it, right? It's very aggressive, making it happen, going after it, all the things. So I started to ask people, what do you think hustle is? And then digging deeper into the definition. And the actual first definition of hustle in the dictionary is really about working with intention and a sense of timing. It's not aggressive. It's not pushy. It's not all of those things that we've sort of been taught in society. And then I asked one of the people that I talked to about the definition, and he said, I always saw the hustle as like the ability to stick to it, the ability to persevere. And I thought, now we're onto something. The world has completely, excuse my language, bastardized the word hustle into something that it's not meant to be. And then I, of course, for me, went to the Bible. And, the word hustle is not in the Bible, but Jesus worked with intention. He worked with small groups. He worked with large groups. He worked one-on-one. You know what else he did? He stole away into quiet places to pray and seek his Father's instruction. He knew how to manage his time and his energy so that he could be his best while also having a lot happening. That, my friends, is the real definition of hustle. Whether someone believes in Jesus or not, if you can look at that example and go, how do I emulate that so that I can work from a place of peace and calm? Serenity is a word that I use a lot in my coaching. It's not a word that we use a lot in the world, but who doesn't want serenity, right? So that we can feel good as ambitious women doing the business that we've been given, right? But also know that it doesn't have to consume us, and we don't have to be working constantly. That constant push and that frantic energy is what we've been taught hustle is. And I just believe that's totally incorrect.
Yeah. This is reminding me of like, being like almost hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
Like always, meticulous, always moving, always.
Right. Yeah. And Sabrina, it's like always trying to do it in our own power and strength. And let's just face it, ladies. We have been called to big things in business, in family, etc. We cannot do that all on our own because our self-reliance will put us in bed. It's why all the women on my mastermind were saying they're exhausted. That's the way the world tells us to hustle.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of self-awareness that needs to happen.
Yeah.
How does somebody get to that point? What does this even mean? How do we start to look inward and become more self-aware.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's number one, something that we're not all really good at, which is we got to sit still and get quiet
Mm.
because that can be really uncomfortable, right? Why am I so exhausted when I feel like I have to be and do and have everything? Why? And who am I trying? What am I trying to prove? And getting really curious about who you are and how you operate. It took me a while to accept that hustle is actually fuels my adrenaline because I thought, "Oh no, how could I admit that out loud?" No, it does. It's just the way I've pursued it. So it's you've got to sit and get curious. I really want to encourage the listeners to please take some time, even if you do it in, an hour or two over a few days, please take some time to get curious about who you are and how you want to work and how you want to live your life. And there's a process that I walk people through based on a book by Jenny Ditzler called The Best Year Yet. And it's about looking at the past year and going, not only what did I accomplish, but what disappointed me and what did I learn? You got to get curious. That's how you find that self-awareness. We don't often take time to do that because it's scary. And we feel like it's hard. And we feel like if I step away from the doing in my business, what will happen to my business? I
Mm.
promise you'll be better at your business the more self-aware you are.
Yes. Yeah, I get that a lot because I'm definitely a hustler. And one of the number one things that is said to me consistently is be careful.
Mm,
You're going to burn out. Be careful. You need to rest. And thank you to everyone who
yeah.
cares enough to say that.
Yeah.
And I think I am at a point in my life where I have become incredibly self-aware
Mm, mm,
of how my body works and what my body needs, and mentally and physically, and taking that time.
yeah. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Sabrina, what you just said is so important about rest because, friends, I'm here to tell you rest is part of hustle. You know why? Because when you work with intention and purpose, you are intentional in the time that you're working. You're intentional in getting done what needs to get done. You're intentional about when do you work best and when do you not work best. So rest is part of that. And rest is many definitions. Again, I think that the world tells us like rest is taking a nap. Friends, I am not a napper, but I can rest and do some New York Times crossword puzzle. I can rest and go for a walk. I can rest and binge The Crown, right? Rest. What does rest mean to you? Again, that goes back to the self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like thank you to all those that want to protect Sabrina. But friends, Sabrina knows what her body needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. You mentioned earlier that early on in your journey, um, the commas meant a lot more
Yeah.
than they do now.
Mhm.
Speaking to all women, I come from lack.
Mhm.
I often say that my hustle stems from trauma,
Mm,
jokingly, like, "Thank you." But that's honest.
like jokingly, but true.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Um, and I can see a change in the way that I show up
Mm,
because the lack is not as heavy.
mhm.
Um, is there times in our life when, right? So somebody listening right now who only has $17 in their bank account
Mhm. Mhm.
as a single mom, that was a story of mine.
Yeah.
Is there a hustle there that's different
Mm.
than your hustle? How
Mm,
do we
mm.
how do we talk to that person?
Well, that certainly was my mom's story as a single mom of 4.
Mm,
And quite honestly, after losing my corporate job, but continuing to live as if we had that money and spending thousands of dollars more every month for our lifestyle that we were in the hole on, we also had those moments where I was like, do I have $10 that I could just put $10 of gas in my car? $10 of gas in my shiny Mercedes, right?
Mhm.
What I would say to that woman is, I hear you and I feel you. And look at the wealth of what isn't defined by money. You're a single mom. Maybe you're working multiple jobs by creating your side hustle. Are there people that are helping you to care for your kids? Are there people that are helping you to have food on the table? I grew up shopping in the food pantry with my mom, and it wasn't fun, but now I can look back and go, thank God for those people who ran the food pantry, and thank God for all those who gave the food, right?
Mhm.
That is why we have to be careful of defining success around the dollars, because if you're getting up every day and have $17 in your bank account and you're doing what you've been given to do, and you're doing it with excellence, and and it's making an impact, like, that is success. And God, regardless of what you believe, God never leaves us, I believe, with nothing. And I've been in times where I felt like I had nothing, but then now I can go, well, hold on a second. I actually I didn't have nothing, right? Somebody came along and brought food for my family, or I didn't run out of gas that day, right? And I'm not doing this Pollyanna, silver lining in every cloud, but just saying, can you be self aware to look around and see, okay, what is working that gives you the energy and the power to persevere? I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's easy. I'm not saying that. But when we know that God's providing, and we know that we're working in our integrity, there is an ease, not easy, that you can find peace in the midst of that.
Absolutely. What a beautiful way to reframe that too, as far as success. It really allows me to recognize that success evolves.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. It evolves 100%. And if I had stayed in the lane that I was in and the route that I was going, I know I would be divorced. I know I mean, I don't even know where I'd be living. There are such valuable lessons in the evolution of that success. I have 2 daughters, 26 and 24. One of them, 9 to 5 is very good for her. And the other one is an artist in New York pursuing her dream, and her work life looks very different. And they look at each other and go, "I do not understand you," right? But success, our definition has to evolve, because we've got to be clear on what we want our life to look like. Because if hustling is burning you out and exhausting you and leaving you in bed, or maybe not even at that point, leaving you with headaches, or a friend of mine has like a twitch that won't go away in her eye, right? It's a quality of life question. And redefining the hustle and really getting clear on what success means to you is critical, because you will literally kill yourself trying to keep up with what the world says success is. And
Mm,
certainly comparison. I mean, like, that's a whole other topic.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I know that you talk often about um, our identities and our achievements.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Mm. For so long, we talked about the commas and the paycheck. My identity was anchored to what I achieved. This goes far back in my life. Like, I'm the kid that took calculus in high school, not because I liked math and not because I wanted to do it, but because I was like, look at me. I have calculus on my schedule. I wanted to be recognized, partially because I'm the oldest of 4, and some of us, like, that's just who we are, and that's how God made us. But I also believe partially because I so desperately, and I love that you said, like, that hustle can be related to trauma. I so desperately did not want to be defined by being the poor girl who wore her cousin's hand-me-downs and her cousins were boys, right?
Mm.
But what happens is it's a drug. I think there's an author, maybe Jennifer Allwood, who says how like success is a gateway drug, right? like I hit the stage, but that wasn't enough. I had to hit more. I hit the incentive, but that wasn't enough. I had to hit more. There's always a more. There's nothing wrong with more unless we're idolizing it, right? And so my achievement always defined me for a very long time. Because to me, that was the outward symbol that I had proven that I had crawled out of that poverty, and I had proven that I was worthy of listening to. And I had proven that, all the things that maybe people told me. I mean, I don't remember anybody telling me that I wouldn't be successful in some way. But I was overcoming that past, right? But then the line shifts. It's like the finish line shifts every single time. And you will never find satisfaction in that because you can't. That's not what you're meant to be satisfied by.
Absolutely. So when you strip everything away.
Yeah. Right. Like I didn't feel successful when, my first job out of college landed me with my Honda CRX being repoed out of my mom's driveway. Right. And I thought failure, like big red lights, failure, failure, failure. Such a lesson. Like I can see that now. Like we can't always see the lessons in the midst of them, but yeah.
Yeah. It's cool when you can start to.
Oh,
Like
when you
while it's
start,
happening, be like,
yeah,
ooh, this is a lesson.
yeah, yeah. And then you connect the dots, like
Yeah.
because you had to learn that lesson to be positioned to help someone else through it.
Mm.
Like it's no accident that you do what you do, Sabrina,
Mm.
because you've learned lessons that allow your hindsight to be someone else's foresight.
Mm.
So we've got to embrace the lessons, but so often we want to race through it or around it or avoid it.
Yeah.
Right? Just get me to the finish line. Right?
Yes. Yes. I was just listening to somebody this morning who was saying that it'll take longer than you think.
Mm. Mm.
There was 3 things that he said. I don't remember what they were, but yeah, it was like, it'll be harder than you think, and it'll take longer than you think, or something like that.
Yeah. I had a
Um,
coach in 2012 who said, and I started coaching with him just before I lost my job. And then I think like my second coaching session was the week after I lost my job. And he had said that entrepreneurship will fillet you open
yeah.
and it will expose things and give you experience to grow and learn in ways that a job never could. Now, there's nothing wrong with a job, right? But it is not easy, friends. It is hard. And we pile on top of this need to hustle and make it happen. I love that person said that. Like it'll be harder and it'll take longer. Yeah. Are you in?
That's the thing. Are you in? Yeah, are you fully committed? And I think that is a thing. I think sometimes people do. They kinda like it's 1 foot in, and then they kinda wonder why it's not working. It's like, "Girl, entrepreneurship is a 2-foot thing."
Whew. Yes.
Both
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not a skip.
No. No.
There's no skipping in this gym class.
Uh-uh.
But yes, I shouldn't say that. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I
I
actually shouldn't
totally
say that.
agree.
I
And
love it.
even in the discomfort,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So, hustle and a bad rap. How does somebody begin to change this? How does somebody begin to change their mindset for this on this?
The first thing is, again, we talked about self-awareness and getting curious and embrace your ambition, girlfriend. Embrace it. It is by no mistake that you were made ambitious. You know how there's this saying like, if you want something done, give it to a busy person, right?
I would say that, yeah.
And it's not about us, wearing busy as a badge, but if you're ambitious, it's because there is impact that you are going to make that takes you being ambitious, that
Yeah.
takes you taking the initiative, right? So first, acknowledge that. And even by the way, a lot of times I have a client who's an introvert and she's like, ambition doesn't mean you have to be out there in front of everybody,
Yeah.
right? It's just that you have this hunger to make an impact. You have this hunger to serve and help and use your talents and gifts. So, number one, accept that you're ambitious. Number two, divorce that definition of ambition from what the world says ambition looks like, because the world says
Mhm.
ambition equals that aggressive hustle,
Yeah.
right? So, sit with yourself and understand, where do you get energy? What is so joyful to you? Joyful to me is some days sitting and writing. Joyful to me is some days being surrounded by people. Understand what truly brings you joy. And then look at that and say, would I call this hustle if hustle meant intention and purpose and sense of timing? When we shift that and we understand how working with intention, purpose, and sense of timing, and for my women of faith, like always seeking God's direction, then we can start to, and it's going to take time. We can start to let go of that tug of war rope and go, hold on, like this is what hustle looks like for me. This is how it fuels my adrenaline, because I have accepted that I am ambitious and that's okay.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I would tell them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love this, to embrace ambition, because yeah, I feel like that's a thing. It's like there's so much dirtiness around hustle and ambition that
Amen.
even women who are naturally ambitious are kind of like stepping to the side because they
Yeah,
don't want to look as if they're, you know, bragging or they're trying, or
right.
it's a weird dynamic to be in.
Mm.
And especially if you haven't really done any work, right? If you haven't
Oh,
done any because not everybody has. Like, I can tell you very much have. I years of it. So it's a different mindset, but there are women all over the place who are jumping into entrepreneurship that have done no
mhm.
personal development.
Yeah.
And so they don't quite, understand self-awareness and,
Mm.
being yourself and,
Yeah. Yeah.
not worrying about other people's opinions.
Right. Right. One of the things that same coach from 2012 had said is that for most people, they'll jump in, right? Like you're talking about, both feet, and they'll hit their first obstacle
Yeah.
that requires them to grow. And they will either choose to grow and do the personal development and be curious and work on the self-awareness, or they will run from it.
Yeah.
And you'll see them hop to something else.
Yep.
Not everyone wants to do that work because it's not always pretty, you know? But man, that work is so important, because that's how we get to show up as our best. And that
Mhm.
we get to, lift as we rise. We get to take another woman's hand and say, I've been down this road and I don't want you to avoid it because you have your own lessons, but let me cut. It's like I'm not a gamer, but it makes me think of like when we used to, way long ago, when you could get those hints, right? Like there's a faster way to get to the princess, right?
Yes.
um, and eventually everyone will hit that brick wall of personal development, and they'll either decide to do it or they won't.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite sayings of some sort is, "The lesson will keep popping up until
Mm.
you learn it."
Girl, I was just with friends yesterday, and we talk in this particular group, we talk a lot about obedience.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way.
Sorry.
Come on. But we were talking
You
a
were
lot
just
about,
with girlfriends. You were just with girlfriends.
yeah, so I was with girlfriends yesterday, we talk a lot about obedience, and the one was like, she was telling this whole story about this new car that she got, and how God had given her instruction however many years ago, and she like sidestepped it, and now the lesson has come back. And it's so true. It's like, deal with the lesson.
Yeah.
But also, no, I do believe that there are layers to those lessons. And so I don't know about you, Sabrina, but so often I'm like, yes, I have conquered the lesson. And then around the corner is like
Yeah.
another layer. Right.
Yeah.
But we got to be willing to walk. We got to be willing to face that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me quickly. I know we're cutting here. Um, when I learned about empathy, I was in a extremely codependent relationship with a man who had very high narcissistic tendencies.
Mm.
And I remember learning about it and I was like, yes, it isn't all me. There's also him. And coming to this realization, right? Starting to gain my power and continuing to dig and then hitting this block of it's not all him.
Yeah.
It's also me.
Right.
Because the only way that a relationship like that works is if there two people need something.
Exactly.
And really coming to this awareness of, he needed me for the time and the energy that I put into his business.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed him for his money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I was in that relationship, it was always like, woe is me. He's hurting me. I am the victim here. I am getting nothing from this relationship. I am a prisoner. I am a slave. And it wasn't until I really came face to face in the mirror of like, I took from that relationship also.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that for a very long time.
Yeah.
Because doing that gave him like accolades.
Yes.
And that was really, really hard. Like even now I'm getting emotional. It was like very hard for me to recognize like there was good that I got out of that.
Yeah.
As bad as it was. And it's not until you really start breaking down the journey that you've been on.
That's right.
And looking at yourself in the mirror and being completely vulnerable, naked, and authentic with like who you are and what your needs are.
Yeah.
As a businesswoman, as a wife, that we really start to step into our power, because it wasn't until then where I could say something like that does not resonate well with me, where I'm like, you know what? Yes, that's powerful.
Yeah. 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 Oh, that's so good. And that is the power of the personal development. And again, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but you got to call it out in yourself. And then you can start to make that shift. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah. And it reminds me of what you said in the beginning. Money is important to me. And then later on, you said, embrace your ambition. I mean, these are things that women have a hard time saying and thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to come face to face and you have to say, you know what? Right now, money is important to me.
Yeah.
Like I am an ambitious woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And I can redefine hustle for myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Erin, we have a ton of people watching live. By the way, thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. This has been a great conversation. I would love for you to tell us exactly what you do, exactly who you help, who should be reaching out to you.
Absolutely. I help high achieving sisters in Christ who have multi-figure businesses and they want to refine or scale their businesses. And scale doesn't have to mean money. It could be, streamlining. It could be moving in a new direction. It could be adding an income stream, whatever that looks like. And I help them do that by aligning their strategy to the Lord. And what I mean by that is not in their own strength. We have a hard time with that. So I help them with strategy, accountability, and focus. Generally, my clients are 40 and above, and they've been in business at least 3 to 5 years. They've experienced some level of success, but they're still feeling unfulfilled. They cannot figure out why. And for them, what's missing is the Lord. and allow me to
Mm.
lead them. So that's who should reach out to me. And if you think of someone that is, a strong woman of faith, but she has all this success and is still sort of like, why am I not happy? Send her my way.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
For those of you that are resonating with Erin and all the goodness that she is speaking today, Erin, where can people find you? Social media, website?
Yep. So erinharrigan.com, which is, I think, on the screen.
Mm.
I love to hang out on Instagram as Erin D. Harrigan and LinkedIn as Erin Harrigan. And you can find my podcast on, my website and all the usual outlets there. And I'd love to connect.
Beautiful. Well, this has been awe-inspiring. I so appreciate you being here. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Friends, you were not made to do business the world's way.
Mm.
And I am the coach that helps you break free from business as usual.
Beautiful. Nice tagline. I love that. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Erin. Once again, I am your host here, Sabrina Victoria. This is Her Talk Show, powered by Her Nation. And I invite you to join our community where we continue to uplift each other every step of the way by having conversations just like